everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another DC Worlds Collide video. I'm glad you joined me this morning. I'm happy you're here. And as usual, if this is your first time here, if you've been here before and haven't yet, definitely hit that like and subscribe button, especially if you're playing DC Worlds Collide or any Hero Collector game. And then I dabble in some survival games as well. But definitely come on in, have some fun as we play these games. The big news, which I'm sure most people thought was going to be Green Lantern, is that Black Adam got a buff. The email is in your thing right here. We'll go ahead and read it, and we'll just go through and see what they have to say. It says, "Hello players, we reviewed the feedback around Black Adam, and we want to thank everyone who has shared their thoughts with us. We understand that right now Black Adam has not been performing as well as players expected. A big reason for this is that the full Shock team is not yet available. We all knew that, which makes it harder for him to fully realize his intended potential." We've been talking about this, so this is not news. Obviously, they've been getting the feedback. To help improve his performance in the meantime, we've made a number of updates to Black Adam. His attack and defense stats have been increased, so they're increasing his stats, and Ruler of Kahndaq has been improved to grant more superpower damage while also giving him damage reduction and knockback on physical attacks. We will continue to monitor his performance closely, and as more Shock-focused characters are released, we'll reassess him again and make further adjustments if needed. It's always a tough road when you're kind of adjusting these characters on the fly, you know. You don't want to be constantly kind of messing with your characters all the time, you know what I mean? So we'll have to see, are we going to get a buff now, and then when the Shock guys come, he's going to get a little debuff. You know, it's slippery slope when you start kind of doing this all the time. So, well, hey, let's see where it goes anyways. Where were we at? Okay. We also know that Shock itself has been difficult for some players to fully understand, especially while only one character currently uses it. Next season, we'll introduce another character who works with Shock. So, next season won't be a Shock season, okay? But they're going to introduce a character with Shock. So that's what I've been talking about this in a few videos, and I'm sure other people have too. You know, how long were we going to sit without a Shock team and Black Adam sitting there just not being able to do anything? Clearly, they're going to buff him so he can do something in the meantime, but we know we're not getting a Shock season. So this is going to be a slow dribble of Shock characters that we're going to get. So, you know, good or bad, that's the way Shock's going to be. It's going to be a slow dribble, not a whole season. So, next season we'll introduce another character who works with Shock, making it much easier to build around the debuff and explore its full potential. For now, it's important to note that Shock damage only triggers when knockback happens. So if they got Shock, they can damage only kicks off when, or the knockback, or Shock damage only triggers when they get knocked back. So Shock naturally causes knockback on its own, but that built-in effect is capped at 25%. Beyond that point, additional Shock stacks alone won't create more knockback. Okay. It says, however, this does not mean Shock stops scaling. Other sources of knockback can still trigger Shock damage even beyond 25 stacks or 25% knockback. And once those larger knockback values are reached, they can also guarantee critical hits for Shock damage. That is one of the reasons we updated Black Adam to apply knockback through Ruler of Kahndaq, so everyone can begin seeing more of that payoff even before the full Shock roster is available. So it says other sources of knockback can still trigger Shock damage even beyond the 25 stacks. Alright, guys, we're in the files. I was going to check to see who all has knockback. Action bar knockback right now, it's only the only one listed is Black Adam, but I thought, and a commenter pointed this out to me too, knocking them back 25% on the action bar. So he has action bar knockback too. So will he work with Black Adam? You know, even though he doesn't have the tag action bar knockback, Gorilla Grodd has it. It's right there in his kit. Used to all appeal on the enemy back row, dealing superpower damage equal to 80% of attack and knocking them back 25% on the action bar. Would this trigger Shock damage then? You know, they don't say anything, and it's, you know, since he's not technically listed in the action bar knockback crew, I wonder if his doesn't do it or not. So definitely something interested about. I wish I had Black Adam. I'd find out for you, but you guys who have Black Adam will have to see if that works that way or not, because it, you know, it does say here And there's my wrong button for the video. Um, Other sources of knockback can still trigger shock damage even if beyond 25 stacks or 25% knockback. So you have to see if maybe those other guys can work with them. Let's just continue with the email. And it says, for now, reaching those higher shock thresholds will still be more challenging than intended, but this update is meant to give Black Adam a stronger foundation while we continue building out the rest of the shock team. Thank you again for your patience, your support, and for continuing to share your feedback with us. So the Black Adam event, which starts on the 27th, which is might be tonight for me here in the US. And then let's look at his changes. All right, guys, let's go over the kit real quick and let's just see what it says. Okay, so Black Adam changes. Passive, Ruler of Conduct, level 1. When Divine Right is triggered, Adam enters into his God mode state for 2 turns. In the God mode, obtain 1 stack of shelter buff for 2 turns. Each time Adam causes physical damage, apply 5 stack of shock debuff. Okay, increase to 2 stacks. So instead of 1 stack, it's 2. A shelter and added damage reduction by 10% while in God mode. So they've added 1 extra stack of shelter and given you 10% damage reduction. During the battle, increase Black Adam's superpower damage by 5%. It is permanently increased without God mode and increased to 10%. Okay, so instead of this being 5% now, it's 10%. So 5% more damage. Level 2 in the God mode also obtain 1 stack of recuperate buff for 2 turns. Each time Adam HP drops below 50% of the max HP, extend the God mode by 1 turn. So increase to 2 stacks now instead of 1. Adds 20% damage reduction while in God mode at level 2. And during the battle increases Black Adam's powers by 10%. Now that's up to 20%. So his damage is scaling. And then in level 3, in God mode, also obtain 1 stack of strong attack buff for 2 turns. Each time Adam causes physical damage, apply 10 stacks of shock debuff. The changes are increased to 2 stacks of strong attack, added damage reduction by 30%, so they're really cranking up his survivability, and while in God mode, and knock back the target by 2% each time Adam causes physical damage in God mode. So you're knocking back the action bar, that's what it, by 2%. Now the changes are, and those are the changes. So you're getting some knockback. You're getting, of course, they're ramping up the damage reduction so he survives longer and giving you some knockback. During the battle, Black Adam's superpower damage by 15%, and then the changes is permanently increased without God mode to 30%. So wow. And then his stat changes. His attack went from 193 to 235, and his base defense changed from 36 to 41. You know, you just have to see how that looks in game. But these are the changes. They're buffing Black Adam. They're going to get in there and you know, try to make him better. We talked about some of these things already. The fact that if they're not going to do a shock season, he could be just sitting on the sidelines for a long time, flailing in the wind. You know, we're at least getting 1 shock person next season. We know that season's not shock since they're going to trickle in a shock person. And, you know, we'll just have to wait and see who that is, if that's Shazam or someone else to help him with his shock. But right now he's got a little buff, you know. Like I said, unfortunately I don't have him, but I definitely want to hear from you guys who do have him. Let me know if this buff helped, if it's made a difference in anything, if you've noticed anything. I gotta believe 30% damage reduction if you've got him at rank 10, it's gotta mean something, you know. But definitely, yeah, definitely let me know how Black Adam's working for you now with the updates. The only other big thing that happened is Green Lantern. We got this little Green Lantern event. They've done this before. It must run on its own pity because I'm at 0. I'm pretty sure I'm not at 0 at any of my other 2 pities. So we have a 3rd pity here to 150. Hal Jordan's a great character. 3 of the 4 are really good characters. I know a lot of people like Jess, Hal, John Stewart, of course, is a great tank. You know, should you summon, that's up to you. You know, if you're, you know, if you don't mind dropping some money, you can try to get Hal and then buy some 8th metal and get him up pretty quick. If you're free to play, it's a lot longer adventure and longer assignment to try to get him up and going to R10. You know, those 8th metal, you get about 20 a month. Or I mean, I'm sorry, you get about 50 a month through 10 through the security plan and about 40 through the store every week. So, you know, it's a long-term investment, long-term project if you want to do it free-to-play. And then especially free-to-play, you got to keep an eye on your sets too. You know, we've got a new season coming up. You know, the bad thing about these event things is they don't come with a store. You know, you get an event that comes with a story, you get a legendary, you take them right to 8. You only need 1 copy. Here you get 1 copy, you're going to get them to what, 7? So you're not going to be able to get a bad artifact on them or anything. You're going to have to, you know, do some work to get that done. So that's kind of the pros and cons of doing this free to play versus not free to play. You know, but it, you know, if you got the sets and Hal Jordan's your man, get after him. That'd be awesome. So, but yeah, other than that, that's about it. You know, there's not much else to talk about. It's a weekly reset. I did my weekly reset stuff. I ended up dropping 3rd, I think, in this. Did we get 3rd or 2nd? 2nd. So, you know, this one's a relatively easy one. The only problem one is you've got to, you know, get rid of all the ice on the other team, and you don't want to use someone too powerful because you'll kill them too soon and stuff like that, but you still got to win the battle. So just kind of balancing that's probably the only really bad, you know, difficult part to do, but, you know, it's doable, pretty easy. You know, just mess around with your roster. You'll find something. You know, Bane AoE attacks doesn't do a lot of damage. You could do a Constantine. Just guys with AoE attacks, so you're taking off as much ice as possible. Superboy, I'd stay away from Wonder Woman, especially if you got her built up. She'll nuke the whole team. Green Arrow's another AoE guy. You know, I just use AoE people, and when the little red circle's on them and they say they're feeling the power, you'll unleash that AoE and they'll knock back a lot of ice off those guys and get that one done pretty quick. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm going to get out of here. I just wanted to drop in and let you guys know that Black Adam is getting buffed, or is buffed, and you got a chance at Hal Jordan. Let me know what you think of both. Like I said, let me know if Black Adam's making a difference for you with this new buff, or if it's and let me know if you're going after Hal. I'd love to hear from you. I'd like to hear how many you got. So, alrighty, guys. Well, I'm out of here for today. Take care, and as always, I hope to see you in the next one. Later, everybody.